in the federal assistance appropriation. Those are the only two places salary and benefits should live. Service contracts are always fun. Everybody has 150,000 service contracts, and frankly, they can be funded in any appropriation depending upon the nature of the work performed. So every one of those you have to take a look at and say, you know, where does this belong? What is the right color of money? If this is associated with an R&D effort on a technology I'm trying to develop, it would be in your R&D appropriation. Another fun one, cooperative agreements. They may be funded with federal assistance, O&S, or R&D appropriations. Again, depending on the nature of the work. So some of this, it will require your interpretation. As you're looking at the purpose of that expenditure, you have to make a decision on what color of money to use, and you have to make the right decision. So example, FEMA administers cooperative agreements through RISC-MAP, which is funded through their federal assistance program. S&T provides cooperative agreements to universities designated as centers of excellence. This is funded through their R&D appropriation. So this is not clear cut. You can't just say, oh, cooperative agreement goes in that pile, service contracts go in that pile. You have to actually take a look at what it is you're trying to buy. User fees.
Okay.
Not mine.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about user fees. CBP has quite a few user fee programs. User fees, you know, I'm just starting to get the hang of it myself. I've been doing it for a couple years here and there in accordance with my normal responsibilities. It is very difficult to understand. It's very difficult to follow. There's all these statutes and there's all these rules and regulations. You can do this, can't do that. So it's definitely a challenge. But there is a whole lot of money that CBP spends in fees and also collects on behalf of the government. Basically, a user fee is just a fee for some kind of a service for a cost recovery. So a lot of times it's salary and benefits, generally speaking. It's most of the time that we're paying for our presence somewhere. If you ever been on a cruise and you've seen our officers that wear blue going through your bags and your luggage, a lot of times they're doing so through the use of some kind of user fee. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So as I mentioned, we have fees that we collect and activities based upon air, sea, and land. So land, if you ever seen one of our ports or been through a port, and a lot of times there's just lines and lines and rows of cars, hundreds of cars sometimes, for people trying to come through. Sometimes it can be people shipping things and moving goods into the United States or out of the United States. It just depends. But a lot of activity there. Many of the fees and duties collected by CBP serve as revenue source for other parts of the U.S. government. So we don't get to keep all that we collect. A lot of it goes elsewhere. So we only get to keep a small portion of it. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of statutory authority determines how a program office can use the revenue generated from the fees. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of rules and regulations in regards to the fee programs. So we're going to talk about mandatory and discretionary fees. The mandatory fees, those are the ones where CBP is able to utilize what we collect. So a lot of times we have our projections in regards to fees, but we never know until we actually, what the flow is. It's hard to judge. So a lot of times you don't know until the end of the month and you take a look at what you have. We do all kinds of projections and things of that nature, but the fee environment can change pretty quickly. I haven't really seen it go down. A lot of the times the volume only goes up. So that means that we have more money that we can then spend or carry over into the next fiscal year. Fees serve a huge purpose for CBP in kind of bridging the gap in regards to the beginning of a fiscal year. We have so many people that if we're under a CR which we're always under a CR. We have so many people that the ONS and the pay resources eat up everything to where you don't have really very much funding left to move to do any kind of non-pay related activities. So the fees help out with that tremendously. We're able to, normally it's our CBP officers, and we're able to pay their salaries, which then frees up the appropriated funds. So definitely a lot of funding reside in the fee realm. Discretionary fees, those ones are more so that we can only spend what was included in the appropriation bills. So they'll give control totals in the bills, and we have to follow based upon what's enacted. In order to change it, we have to do a special request. I can't see that, Jane. 5 minutes?
No, 0.
0 times that? Well, thanks, Janet. So, real quick, let's see. Reimbursable. I'm trying to see if there's anything else very important to talk about. So, we have a CMS system that collects the activity-based costing piece. Basically, it's our officers putting in their time into the payroll system, which records the activities that they worked. That's how they justify the use of the fees based upon the fee statutes, because you only can use a fee based upon very specific activities. Monthly, we do a process where we figure out who gets what in regards to fee funds. One thing in particular that we normally do in order so that we are not anti-deficient in any way or have any cash issues is we make sure they have cash in hand. Meaning that once the funding shows up on our record books, then we know that it can be allocated. And we try not to allocate it before that period of time. So there is sometimes some timing issues in regards to the use of fees. These are just some of the fee programs. And this last slide.
Okay, last slide. I'll be really, really quick. I don't have to discuss reimbursable funds in great detail, because if you want to talk about it and learn about them, give me a call. I will discuss it at length with you, but I don't want to keep Ms. Morcott waiting. The most important thing that you can know about reimbursable authority, because almost every entity in here has a reimbursable agreement with my office, is that the color of money that you transfer on a reimbursable agreement maintains that color of money when I get it. So you can't give me ONS funds, in the same example, and I've seen this done. You can't give me ONS funds and ask me to build a building for you. I will not do it. The color of money does not change because you put it on an interagency agreement and transfer it to Flexi. So that is the most important thing you need to know with regard to reimbursable funds. Anything else, feel free, give me a call. I'm in the address book, and we'll talk at length. We made it.
Fast and Furious, I think.
Great job.
Thank you. You too. That was awesome.